class. This should be our last screen capture video for the semester about process costing. Okay, the last one was job order costing. We had a bunch of jobs that were underway. We were manufacturing batches of goods, and we kept track of them on a job-by-job basis. Here we are making something or other, and the problem we're going to go over, I believe we're making soup. And what we have is different departments that will track the cost in. So in this little example here, with these little T accounts, we have two departments. So let's see how this works. As far as the purchase of materials that go into the soup, that's the same as it was for job order costing. Yes? So we debit the inventory account, we credit cash, accounts payable, whatever the case may be. We're going to have material requisitions, just as we did with job order costing. But instead of going into different jobs, little sub-accounts, and also in the main account, they go into different departments. So you see this material was added in department 1, and then material over here was added in department 2. Okay? So then we have the application of direct labor. So if you're working in department 1 and you're engaged in the process of making the product, you're a direct laborer, and the cost of your wages goes into department 1, and of course the same routine for department 2. So you have laborers in department 1 and department 2, and they are charged to the WIP account the same way that we charged the WIP account for job order costing, only this time we are putting some in one department and some labor in another department. Of course, there could be 3 or 4 departments, but we're just trying to keep it simple. You have the application of factory overhead, same exact deal as job order costing, which is you're going to use some type of multiple. Maybe direct labor dollars is the one I've been using. You could use direct labor dollars. There's a lot of different things that could be done. Okay. So that's how factory overhead is going to be applied. Okay. And then we have, let's look at our little T accounts here. So we are in department 1, we're adding material, labor, and overhead. And then when the product has reached a certain point, it gets transferred to the next department. That's department 2. Check. So it'd be a debit to WIP 2 and a credit to WIP 1. And then in WIP 2, what do? You add some more materials, labor, and overhead. And then when you're done with WIP in department 2, we move it into finished goods. So we debit finished goods, the asset account, we credit WIP 2. And then from this point on, it's identical to job order costing. Okay, you sell the goods, what are you going to do? You're going to debit the cost of goods sold, and you're going to credit finished goods. That entry right there, yeah, yes, okay. And here's the entries for the over and underapplied overhead, which is identical to job order costing as well. So in this case, in letter L, you have what? You have underapplied factory overhead, and in letter M, you have overapplied factory overhead. So that's how it works. There's your little T account for factory overhead, which would look exactly like the job order cost, except for what? Except that you have applications, 2 of them, one going to department 1 and another one going into department 2. And there's our transfer, by the way, which I mentioned earlier, moving the costs from 1 to 2, and then the final destination is finished goods. Okay, so that's how it lays out debit and credit wise. Now let's take a look at the cost of production report for Caitlin's Soupy Soups, Inc. Alright, so this top part of the report, we're going to account for the units. Alright, how many units do we have to account for? Well, we have to account for the units in the beginning inventory. So we go looking at the information that we were provided. We have 12,000 gallons of soup in the beginning WIP of the mixing department. So I'm going to put 12,000 over here. Now we're looking for started in process. So we had partially completed 12,000 units we started with. And then we added to production, let's see, charged to WIP during December, 74,000 gallons. Okay, so I'll put that up here, whole units. Okay, so we have 86,000 units that we have to account for. All right, so let's look at this. Now we do a calculation of equivalent units. In the beginning WIP, we had 12,000 units. And the materials, in this case the components of the soup in the mixing department, are added at the beginning of the process. So if these are partially worked on and you added materials at the beginning of the process, which in this case would have been in November, how much materials will you add in December? And the answer is you will add 0. Check. Okay. Conversion cost, that's going to be your labor and overhead. Equivalent unit wise, how much work did we do? Well, we had 12,000 units. They were 75% complete as to conversion costs. So to finish them off, it's going to take 25% of 12,000. So we'll multiply 0.25 times the 12,000, and we'll pick up the, which of course is going to be 3,000. And that is a calculation of equivalent units. So if you did 25% of the work on 12,000 units, we're saying that that's 3,000 equivalent units. That's how we make the calculation. Now the next group here, started and completed, okay? So let's see now. We started 74,000 units. It says here, during December, 78,000 gallons of soup were transferred to the next department. Okay, 78,000 were transferred out. So let's look at this. We're using a FIFO mentality here. So these we would assume would have been part of the 78,000. So how many units did we actually start and complete? Must have been 66,000. These we finished off. Those are started and completed. So equivalent unit wise, that's easy. That's going to be 66,000 over here in whole units. How much material do we put in? We put in all the materials at the beginning of the process. And put in 100% of the conversion cost as well. So that started and completed is always going to be the same number. You just got to figure out what it is. So how do you figure out what it is? You figure out what was transferred out. That was a given, 78. How much came out of the beginning WIP? 12. You must have started and finished 66,000 units. Okay. Now, the bottom here, equivalent unit-wise, we had 8,000 units in the ending WIP. And how do we know that? Because we were told, okay, there's 8,000 units, which are 40% complete as to conversion cost in the ending work in process. Okay, so let's go back over here, and that's going to be 8,000 units. Okay, there's our 86,000 again. Okay, how much did we put in terms of material? We put in all the material components of the soup, 8,000. How much conversion cost was applied? Well, 40%. So we'll take the 8,000 times 40%, 3,200 equivalent units. Okay, here we have it. That's the top part of our cost of production report. And now we're going to track the costs. Okay. So, equivalent unit-wise. Okay, total costs for December. Total costs, direct materials. Do we know what that is? We do. Where is it? It's over here somewhere. $273,800 was added in December. What about conversion cost? That's That's the other two numbers over here, added during December. So I'll add those two together. And then I'm going to divide by the equivalent units. So material-wise, that was 74,000. And conversion cost-wise, that was 72.2. Okay? And we divide. Comes out to $3.70 for the materials. Comes out to $5.60. So I created these problems, and if I did it the right way, the way I wanted to, these should come out to nice even numbers, which they do. All right. Now, what costs were assigned to production? Okay, what was the cost of the beginning whip? Do we know what that is? Of course we do. Let's come over here. Let's go look at our B whip. There it is. That's the total cost of the beginning whip. That's what we started with. That cost was from November 93.6. Okay. And then we're going to add to that the costs that were incurred during December. And what were those costs? That would have been these. $678,120. All right, that's the cost of the beginning whip that was given. These are the costs that were added in December. What's the total? Just add them together. And now we have to account for that $771,000. Where is it? Where is the $771,000? All right, so where could it be? Well, it could be some of the cost was applied to finishing off the beginning whip. Some of the cost pertained to the beginning whip. Some of the cost was for the started and completed, and some of the cost is for the ending whip. All right, so let's start with the work in process. We inherited $93,600 from November. And now, what was the cost to complete the beginning whip? Well, this is going to be a zero, right? Why? Because we said that the materials are added at the beginning of the process. All right, conversion costs. How much cost was added? Well, let's see. Look up here. We had 3,000 equivalent units. If we multiply it times $5.60, that should give us the cost to finish off the beginning whip. So let's come over here. Let's take the 560, multiply times the 3,000. I get 16,800. So what did it cost to finish off the beginning whip? It cost 16,800. Zero materials conversion costs. So what is the total cost of the B whip once it is completed? The total cost is $110,000. Okay. So we just had add that little chunk to the beginning whip to finish it off. Now we come over here. Started and completed. What was 66,000? Check. So where is that? That's up here, right? 66,000 times what? Times the equivalent units. So just take the 66,000 and multiply times $3.70, and I get 244,200. We do the same thing over here for the conversion costs. I'm just going to copy the formula. I get 369,600. How did I get that number? Take 66,000 times $5.60, and you get a bunch of illegible junk. You get 369,600. That's what you get. Okay. Moving right along. Where are we? All right. What was the total cost of the started and completed? Just add these two together. 613,800. Okay. We're getting there. Now, what did we transfer to Department 2? We transferred out 78,000. Yeah? What's 78,000? These 12 and those 66. Remember, this was 12,000 units? That was 12,000. And this was 66,000. We transferred out 78,000 units. Okay, and that was a given, by the way, 78,000. All right, work in process, end of the month. How much did we put in material-wise? Well, how many units did we have in the ending WIP? We had 8,000, I believe. So let's go up here. We had 8,000 units, multiplied times $3.70, 29,600. Conversion cost-wise, we had, I think it was 3,200 times $5.60. That's 17,920. So that's the cost of the ending WIP, which is 40% complete as to conversion costs. And now for the big moment. I'm going to add these two numbers together. And it ties in, which makes us what? Happy as hell. Okay. That's how you do it, the cost of production report. They have examples in the book. This is a FIFO basis. So the assumption is that you worked on the beginning inventory first and took X amount of dollars to finish it off, and then you went from there. That's how it works. So what I'm going to do is send this off to you in an update, and what we're going to do for comprehensive assignment number 3 is I'm just going to make that to be the job order cost homework, this one here, and the process homework, along with what? Cost volume homework. Okay, so those 3 will constitute comprehensive assignment number 3. So what I'll do is package them up and send them to you as one email along with an update, which will include what? This one here, and all the formulas, check. So hopefully you're able to put this thing together, and we'll go from there. Feel free to ask as many questions as you like. Signing off for now.